Hello again folks, and welcome to part 2 of the bench power supply build. In this video I'm going to show you how to basically put the bench power supply together. I'll show you how to cut the holes in the end panels for the various components. I'll show you how to wire it up in the safest possible manner and how to secure that wiring to give us hopefully quite a nice, neat and professional finish. Now, the most important thing I can tell you when you're doing a project like this is to forward plan, because we don't want to start cutting holes and stuff for it all not to fit together the way we anticipate it fitting together. So it's critical that we basically perform a dry fit of the required components, just to make sure and give us that confidence that the thing is going to go together and we're going to have something that looks nice at the end. Because there's nothing worse than having a bit of kit on your workbench that you're not happy with, or you look at and think, oh, I wish I'd done it another way. So if we do the dry fit and sort of lay out the components, we can see roughly how it's going to look like before we actually commit to that design. So the most obvious thing, obvious concern we've got is the largest component, which is of course the power supply. Now we can see it's significantly longer in one dimension, so that's going to, we're going to have to consider that when we're thinking about how we're going to fit it in the enclosure. So if we put it in that way, we can see that it doesn't give us very much space at either end. Hopefully that comes out in the camera, but we will struggle. There's just basically no way that this is going to fit in. Even if it did, the components are right up against each other. It's not ideal at all. So realistically, the only way we can fit this power supply in is this way. Now, I did mention in the previous video that these standoffs are going to have to be cut off, so don't worry about too much about those just now. So we can either put it that way or put it that way. My suggestion would be, as you can see, on one side we've got an aluminium sort of heat sink, if you like, and then the other two sides we've got punched steel plate. And my suggestion to you would be to put it in this way. Now, it's a 5 amp power supply. We're only going to be drawing a maximum of 2 amps. It's unlikely that this is going to overheat. However, if we do decide further down the line that it is overheating and we want to have some sort of cooling, it'd probably be advantageous to have the mesh or the punched steel at the back and the top, because we can then potentially mount a cooling fan in here and maybe drill some holes in the top of the enclosure to get that airflow through. So realistically, I think this is the best option here. Punched holes at the top and rear. As you can see, we've got about 1 inch of clearance in here for our wiring, which is plenty. Everything will be insulated as best we can, so there's no risk of shorts or anything like that. We do have access to it, while we're putting it together, so there's going to be no dramas there. Thinking about our front panel and how we're going to lay that out. I kind of mentioned it in the previous video that I wanted the DC output on the left just because it's going to suit my workbench better that way. But of course you can set this out the way you want it to be. So I think what we're going to do on this is have the power supply module itself in the dead centre. We'll have a DC output on the left hand side of that, and on the right hand side I think I will actually put a power switch on. And even things like this, you want to consider how the orientation of your power switch is going to be. Now my suggestion to you would be to have it that way. It's a rocker switch, quite a nice click on it, nice and tactile. But my suggestion to you would be to have the on position to the top. And the reason I say that is, if you, for any reason, and it is worst case scenario we're talking here, if you have it in that position, and think about it when this is, mounted like so, if you have something potentially fall on your workbench, you could potentially knock the power supply on. It does have a soft sort of on-off switch actually as part of the module, but just as I say, overkill, I would probably have it that way, because the worst case is something falls and actually turns the power supply off. So that's just my suggestion to you. In terms of our mains coming in, you remember I made this, or wired up this socket in the previous video. That's going to fit quite nicely in there. Bear in mind the panel's going to be in there. So what we can do is we can take a neutral and earth. I can move this out of the way actually, might help. We can take a neutral and earth down the back and then into the power supply there, and then our hot side, our live, can come down the other side of the enclosure to the power switch, and we can either run another live cable round to the live there, or round the front here. Probably better going round the back, then you do have at least some separation between your mains and your DC. Again, massively overkill, but it's just a consideration. So I think that's pretty much how we're going to do it. So let's just lay it out. We're going to have our mains in there. We're going to have our power supply module there, our DC out there, and our main switch there. And that's pretty much how it's going to look. Or that's what the layout's going to be. I know I'm waffling on here, guys, I do apologise. In terms of how we're going to actually secure the power supply itself, as I said, we're going to cut these standoffs off. Now, it does have a couple of threaded holes there. There's potential that we could put some screws in there as well, but it does have a couple little cutouts here. And bearing in mind that a bench power supply, by definition, sits on the bench, it doesn't get moved about. My thoughts are to use these types of things, little PCB standoffs. This is actually quite a light power supply, so if we look here, these sit in quite nicely into those two slots, he says. So what we can do is we can pop those in there, one in each corner, and then basically use the other ones to prop up the sides where there isn't a cutout. There's two advantages to that. One is if we need to take it out, it's going to be fairly simple to take out. I suppose it's no more simpler than taking out a few screws, but the fact that it's raised up does allow for extra airflow as well, so it is going to aid with cooling should it require that. So that's pretty much what we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do is prep our panels for the various components. And the way we're going to do that is, first of all, look at your panels. Now these have been knocking about in the workshop for a while, and as you can see there's some little nicks in this one. This one's fairly clean. So basically pick the best one for the front, which is probably going to be this one, I think. So that's going to be our front panel, and this will be our rear. And what you want to do is take some masking tape, okay? Just bog standard sort of decorator's masking tape, and get it right on the edge, just so we're covering the entire thing. So this serves two purposes, or three I suppose really. It prevents us from damaging it when we're knocking about on the workbench with it. It allows us to write on the panel, so it's not gonna, it's gonna be difficult to see pen on a black background, isn't it? But yeah, it allows us to write on there. And three, when we start to cut it, if for instance our tool slips, we're going to reduce the risk of damaging the panel or marking the panel elsewhere. So we can use a ruler, a tape measure. In fact, I'll use a couple of things here. I'll use a tape measure. So looking at the width of the panel, we can see that it is, It's about 18.5 centimeters across. Okay, so yeah, something like that. So basically, you're basically going to want to measure it and get your various components central in there. So I like to use my digital calipers. These are very cheap. In fact, I got these from Woolworths, if you remember Woolworths in the UK. I think you can still get it in the States, but yeah, they went bankrupt in the UK. So, but yeah, I got this years ago. But it's really handy and it works perfectly. So what we're going to want to do is basically eyeball it initially to get it roughly in the position we want it to be in, and that should normally be good enough. If you want, you can go mental and you can use your calipers and basically measure it out. What do we see? 52.65, 52.60. So we see, so if I knock that slightly to the side, and I'm just going from the edge of the panel to the edge of the unit itself. Yeah, that's close enough there. Looking at it top down, you can probably see there, I don't know if the angle's perfect, but you can see that that is pretty straight and square. So what we're going to do is just hold that down now, try not to move it, and then we'll just draw around using a permanent pen onto the masking tape. Like so. So we can see that there, God, I made a mess of that there. Doesn't matter, the corners are where it matters on that. We've got quite a bit of a flange on here, so we can be fairly coarse with that, and it will still give us a nice finish. So let's just double check that and see what it looks like. So there's a kind of point on the end, so that's 56.03. And you see 56.03 exactly central, so that's good. Onto the height of the unit, so we've got 12.53 from the top of the unit to the top of the enclosure, and I'll just check on the bottom here. Yeah, pretty much bob on, so that's good. Let's see, you can. I kind of started using a tape measure on that. You can do that, but eyeballing it and then just double checking it is easier for me anyway. If you do make a mess of it, you can then go back of it. You can put some more tape on top, redo it until you've got it perfect. A wise man once told me, measure twice, cut once, and that's what we're doing. So what we'll do now is I will pause the video. I will mark out where these are going to go, where the IEC socket's going to go, and I may actually cut one of them out and then show you me cutting the second one out, if that makes sense. So if you bear with me, we'll do that now. See you in a moment. Hi folks, I thought I'd just quickly start the video before I start cutting, but there we go, there's our end panel all marked out. We've got our DC out there, panel aperture where that's going to be, and where the power switch is going to go, and on the back panel I've got marked out with the holes for where the screws are going to go through the bolts, and where we need to cut out. So ready to rock. I'll get these cut out now. I'll have some of them cut out and then I'll come back to you and show you, so bear with me. Right, hello again folks. Right, okay folks, right, I've started cutting these out and I just thought I'd quickly show you how to do, how I do it. We've obviously marked out where we want to cut, and what we want to do is we want to go inside the lines we've marked out. That means that if you know, if we've marked it slightly incorrectly, at least we've got something to work with, and we can open up slightly. It's obviously easier to cut a bit more away than it is to try and add something in to fill holes. So we're just using the Dremel. I've got my little diamond coated cutting disc, cut off disc, and all I'm going to do is turn it on and cut it on the inside of the line. Now I'm not going to go right up to the edge just now, and I'll show you why just in a second. So let's do that. So excuse the noise. Okay, so there we go. You do get this build up of the molten plastic as it comes off as dust, and it builds up. You just break that off. But there's the back panel now. So we've cut it in as close as we can there. We can see we've always cut up to the edges on that side, because it's a disc, of course. You know, it's going to cut further through the sides. Sorry, this side, the side you're cutting it from. So next thing to do is go to the other side and basically try and cut these out a bit further now, if that makes sense. So you're basically going to make up the square that we want to cut out. And then just turn it over, and again just a little bit more up to the corners. And there we have it. So sorry it took a little bit longer than anticipated there. As you can see, we've got our hole cut out, and if I can find it, where did I put that? Oh, there we go, there's a fail. I don't know what I've done with that here. We take our power connector now. So this is the way it's going to go through. We can see it's a little bit tight, which is ideal. That's what we want. We want it to be tight, because that means we can then take a file like these are just cheap needle files, and just file out the corners like so, obviously until we open it up, and then you know, our components should fit in quite nicely. So what I'll do is I'll just pause the video now. I'll finish filling this out, and I'll get the rest of the holes cut out, drilled, all that good stuff, and then we'll go about assembling it. So again, just bear with me and I'll be back shortly. Hello folks, welcome back. Right, we're getting there. That's all the holes cut out and things drilled where they need to be drilled, and it's just a case of test fitting everything now. So first of all, we'll test fit our IEC socket, which should hopefully fit. Oh, it goes that way, that's why it's not fitting in. There we go. That's a nice fit, nice and level, and as you can see, nice flush fit. Happy days. We've got our DC out. Now, I intentionally made the hole slightly bigger than they needed to be, and it's always a good idea to do that, because it gives you a little bit of room for movement. You know, you can, pardon the pun, but you can, you know, adjust it so it's you know, exactly vertical. Got a hole drilled for our power switch, like so. and obviously the main star of the show, our little module here. Now if you'll notice, there's a couple little tangs there, whatever you want to call it, so I did have to cut, as you can see, probably better that side, a little bit extra out the sides, just to facilitate those going in. Now that does look a little bit rough. I cut it with a cut off wheel, and basically used a sharp knife to sort of cut away you know, the excess, and it does. It is level, and that little flange on the side will cover up any sort of rough edges. So you will get rough edges unless you're using a laser cutter or something like that, or if you've got one of these super duper fancy high pressure water jet cutters, it's gonna be rough around the edges. But as long as it's within you know, the specification or the dimensions of the unit, it will cover it up. Anyway, again, I am rambling on. So next thing we're going to do is now we can take off the masking tape. Now hopefully it should come off quite cleanly, because it's not been on there long, and it is designed to come off quite easily. So there we go, excuse me. Like so. And what we'll do now is we'll just mount our socket back in there with the masking tape removed. Okay, right, we'll take the screws, excuse me, and pop those in. Like so. And we'll take the little washers. Like so. Of course, guys, if you don't want to watch me putting nuts and bolts on, of course you can just fast forward to this next step. Okay, right, and we'll just tweak those up with a screwdriver. Get one that fits. And there we have it. There's our power socket, nice and professional looking, and as you can see, there's no rough edges there. The flange around that covers everything, so it's nice and tidy. Perfect. Okay, right, onto the front panel now. And we'll just take off this. You can see, it's handy just to write dimensions of holes and stuff and things like that as you're going along. Just so when you're cutting, it'll just remind you what you need to do. Now the power sockets, sorry, the DC out, the little plastic trim plates, if you like, had a facility to go into a recess. Basically, the amplifier that it came out of, it had a metal case, and to insulate the connectors from the case, there's two little plastic pieces that sort of sandwich the metal casing in between. as I'll show you here. So that would go on like that with the metal case in between. But there was two, or you can see on here possibly, there was a sort of raised part which basically stopped it from moving around. So I just cut that off with a sharp knife. And I think we'll have positive on top. But of course on here that's not required because it is a plastic case, so there's no need to have it insulated, because of course plastic is an insulator. That'll do there. Pop on those little serrated washers. Tighten those up just finger tight, and then we'll check the alignment, see what it looks like. Yeah, that's close enough. And then just take a pair of pliers, or if you want a little spanner, whatever, and tighten those up. Just one final check, make sure they're level, vertical I should say, yeah, nice and tight. And then just take the little lock-in nuts. Like so, and they'll just prevent that from slackening off in time. We could put, of course, crimp some terminals on for the DC output, but I think we'll just solder directly onto the connectors themselves. Right, our switch, it will be the next thing to go on, and remember we're going to put the negative at the we're going to put the on position at the top and the off at the bottom. Now if you notice on here there's a tiny little sort of key, so what we need to do is excuse me, cut a little notch in there just for that to fit in. So it's going to be at the bottom at the 6 o'clock position, so I'll just use my knife. It doesn't need a lot, it's not a particularly big key, so hopefully you can see that. I'll try that, see how that looks. A little bit more. Yeah, that'll do the job. Make sure it's as vertical as it can be, and then we'll put the split washer on there, and the nut just to tighten it all up. Again, we can use our pliers just to get that tight. And as you can see, I'm a biff. I've just put it on the wrong way. So hopefully it won't have marked the enclosure. No, it's fine. But what it does mean is we're upside down. Anyway guys, I'll pause that and I'll get it corrected, and yeah, we'll come back to you. Bear with me. Right, apologies for that. There we go. That's it. The way it should be. So we've got our DC output, we've got our power switch there for the mains, and now all it's left to do is pop the module in, and as you see, it just clips in there nicely, and it looks pretty tidy. Got a little mark on the front there, not to worry, but yeah, that looks fairly nice and smart. So next thing we're going to do is basically test fit the panels. Of course these might fit in slightly better one way round, you know, as in the front and back panels, so we'll just pop it in the way we intend to have it and see how it all fits together. So just pop that in there, and we'll take our top panel. And yeah, that looks relatively nice. Looks like a fairly good fit. It's worth just rotating the enclosure 180 degrees as well, because you may, like I say, you may find it fits better, slightly better, one way than the other. And yeah, I think I prefer it that way. I think it looks slightly better. Okay, right. So happy with that. And on the inside, I'll just scrape a little F on there. Nobody's going to see that. And again, we'll just put a little F there so we know that's the front. Okay, so we'll put our panel back in there. And what I'm going to do now is route the power to the switch. So our mains in. So our power supply itself is going to sit somewhere in here like so. Okay, that's going to go around there to somewhere about there. So we need this mains to come in and go up to this switch. So we're not too bad for in terms of length there. Probably do about there. So yeah, if we just snip that like so, we'll trim that off, and then that's us ready to go onto the switch. So what I'm going to do now is I'll pause the video and I'll route the wiring for the mains, and then I'll come back to you. So again, bear with me please. Hello folks, welcome back. Really sorry this is taking as long as it is. I thought it'd be a bit quicker, but as you can see, I have put the mains on. So we've got mains coming in, come up to switch, and then come back out on a flying bit of wire just now there, along with the neutral and earth. I've just held those out the way with helping hands just to make things a bit easier. I've soldered onto the back of the DC output, and looking on here, I know it's upside down, but hopefully you can see it says in on the right there and out. So I've just cut the wires to the correct length and tinned them up, just to make things a bit easier, and we'll just pop those into the terminals in there. There's no need to insulate the back of the connectors there. It'll just go in there quite the thing, and you know, they're gonna be there. They're not going to touch anything, so you should be okay without insulating them. So they've gone in, those have gone in fine. You can see, keep them as short as possible, nice and neat, just like that. Okay dokes. So we're also going to need a DC input. Again, I've just tinned these two pieces of wire ready to go in. So slacken those off. Okay, and that's a DC in, so that's going to come from the power supply and power the actual unit. Okay, so we'll just slot that in there like so just now, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tidy up this mains wire in here, and what I'm going to use is just cable tie on, because these self-adhesive ones, I've pre-prepared these just with you know, putting the cable tie through, just makes it a bit easier. So put that right down at the bottom. We don't want it to interfere with the case, so, or the enclosure I should say. That's just going to keep it out of the way. Where's my snips? Like so, and then we'll just do very similar at the other side. Okay, right. Let's just let's say keeps it nice and neat and tidy. Next thing we're going to do is install the power supply itself now. So I had a little test fit, as I said before. Always worth test fitting. Make sure everything's in place. Give it a shake. Make sure there's no little bits of debris in there from us cutting out panels and stuff like that. And yeah, I've had to cut the edge off, or the side off one of these standoffs just to get it in and keep it tidy and give us enough clearance into the terminals here. So before we stick everything down, I think what we'll probably do is just make sure that everything lines up, and we can cut our wires to length. So we've got a positive here, so that should do about there. A negative is going to here. Like so. Live. Do about that. Neutral. And of course the all important earth. Like so. Right, so that's leads all cut to length. We can now go ahead and mount this. So this may be a bit tricky, so I'll pause the video yet again and install the power supply in the enclosure. So again, bear with me. Right, welcome back guys. I promise you we're nearly finished. Excuse me. Right, okay folks, so I have terminated the output from the power supply, so the input leads into the module, terminated with those crimp connectors, little ferrules in the end, and screwed those down. Just routed the cable in behind the post there, just to keep it a bit neat and tidy and reduce the risk of any sort of chafing on the case of the power supply. So last thing to do is to terminate the mains, so we'll just crack on and do that. Like so. Just twist those up. Like so. And we'll just use a little ferrules again. Make sure there's no stray ends. Like so. They're quite good, these little ferrules. Nice professional finish. And lastly, our live. Oops. Okay, so that's nice and terminated, and we can go ahead and fit them in. So first of all, we've got our live, which goes in like so. Then we're neutral. And our earth. nice and tidy. Okay, so shall pop the back plate on, and I'll just bring this up to the camera and show you how I mounted it. So I think what we'll do now is just use one of these anchors. Just pop it on there. And again, all this is going to do is prevent the wires from chafing potentially on the case of the power supply itself. So there's our cables all routed. That doesn't need to be super tight, it's just to hold it off. So we never really talked about it, but we can see that the live there is quite close, but it's not gonna rub, it's not gonna move, it's gonna be stationary on the bench. That's held there, that's held there. We've got it all nice and terminated, get in nice and tidy. We just pop that safety cover down, you know, it looks the piece. In terms of mounting, so that's the one I cut the edge off, that's in the hole there. We've got another one there, that one just under the edge, it doesn't have a hole but it's secured it, and under this corner I basically just snipped this part off, just so it's essentially a standoff, giving it some support, and that is absolutely solid. That's not going to go anywhere, as you can see there. So quick last minute check, make sure everything's good to go. Live neutral earth, yeah, switch come in there, happy days. Yeah, that's us. Let's finally finish it. Remember we put an F on the front, so we'll just drop that down. Just double check there because I trapped the live on there, so just make sure that's not trapped anymore. There we go, pop those down there. Nice and tidy. Double check in the front. Okay, let's put the screws in. So they come with 4 little rubber feet or plastic feet. Grand, and we'll just screw these in. We don't want to do them up too tight. Just enough to secure it. So I appreciate this has been an epic video, guys. I hope you did find it useful though. As I say, hopefully you can just fast forward it as required to get to the relevant points or things you might think is pertinent. So as you can see, that is the unit completed, nice and secure. I suppose the only thing left to do now is to test it and see if it turns on. I want to do, in an effort to reduce the length of the video as much as I can, I won't do a full test of this, but we'll plug it in just now and see what happens. So, mains is in, nothing on, press the power switch, there we go, V in, we've got 23 volts, 22.9 volts in, yeah, turn it on. Yeah, we're getting you know, get with the on indicator, so that's set to 5 volts. So let's see if it is indeed outputting 5 volts. There's one negative, there's one positive. 5.04 volts. Yeah, absolutely spot on. Yeah, there we have it. Our completed power supply. So I did say at the end we would talk about cost. The unit itself, the PD20V2A, that is about £15 from AliExpress. The enclosure I got off eBay, including delivery, for a £5. The power supply was £4.21. The switch I had in a parts box, as did I have this because it was pulled out an old amplifier, as was the IEC socket. So total build cost, you're looking at around £24 to build this 2 amp 20 volt power supply. Comparing it from what you can get off the shelf, you can't get a power supply of that sort of specification for 24 quid. The nearest thing you're going to get is probably a Tenma, or one of the really cheap the cheap power supplies from China that absolutely look terrible. I know this doesn't look, you know, perfect, but the trouble with the Chinese one is it's all proprietary. It's a single board sort of power supply. If you mess it up, you're going to have to spend another £40. If you mess this up, all you're going to have to change is a £4 or £5 power supply or a 15 quid module. You know, it's something you can build, you can look at, you know you've built it yourself, you can use it, you know, it will work. Look after it, don't overload it, you know, and it should last. Yeah, these are definitely really good little modules. As I say, if you want a different output power supply, you can get other variants of this. Go to RD Tech on AliExpress and they'll provide you or supply you with you know, one suited to your needs. Anyway guys, I appreciate this is probably the worst video we've ever done in terms of length and, you know, blabbering on. I do hope you enjoyed it. It's a good little project to do. Something that's going to last you in your workshop. If you did enjoy it, you did find it useful, please, as always, like and subscribe. And until next time, take care of yourselves and all the best.